I think it's so important for me specifically to be out in the community because now I get to be a role model. When I was in law school and when I started my career, I didn't see judges who looked like me. And now we have a bench with the majority are female. We have a lot of diversity in thought, a lot of diversity in background, and I think it's important now for the next generation to see, if we can do this, you can do this as well.
Welcome back to the Sapience Podcast, your hub for in-depth discussions on education and community here in Las Vegas. Today, we're honored to host Judge Tina Talim, a trailblazer in the legal community and the first Indian-born judge in Nevada's history. Judge Talim brings her extensive background from the Clark County District Attorney's Office and to the 8th Judicial District Court, Department 14, where she champions high ethical standards, fairness, and diversity. From handling high-profile cases to advocating for educational outreach, Judge Talim's career is a testament to her commitment to justice and community service. Today, we'll delve into her journey in the legal field, her impactful reforms, and her vision for the intersection of education and law. Judge Talim, thank you for joining us, and let's start with your incredible journey.
Thank you so much.
So what inspired you to pursue a career in law?
So I've always wanted to do something where I could affect and give back to the community. I moved to America when I was a young child, and I saw my mom came here for better opportunities. So when we first moved here, she used to clean homes, and I always found that there was so much honor in that work. And I wanted to do something with my life that would allow me to give back to the community and to the country that has given me so much.
So having been involved in law, there's obviously a multitude of ways where that involves you in community service. So what motivated you to get into criminal prosecution first?
So when I was in law school, in my second year of law school, I interned at the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. And I was able to go to court with some of the most amazing litigators that I had seen. And I continued that internship into my third year. So I was able to do preliminary hearings, assist with grand jury presentations, and actually I second chaired 2 felony trials and one was a homicide trial. And I saw how much good the prosecution could do to bring justice to victims of crime. So I chose that as my career path so I could continue to give back to the community, to advocate for justice, and to do my part in making our community just a little bit safer.
That's amazing. And something that you said was that this was a program through school that you were able to do, and how important in terms of choosing a career that you were able to actually get involved in the process that you were looking to pursue a career in.
Yeah, I think the school that I went to Pepperdine University for law school after graduating from UCLA. I was really fortunate to have a lot of incredible mentors and a lot of professors who really showed me through hard work and determination, anything is possible. So I had these opportunities available to me, and so much of life is taking advantage of the opportunities that you're given, especially through education. So I was very fortunate that I landed a position to do an internship, and that opened up for me my entire career and really showed me what I wanted to do with it.
That is so amazing. And I think all the parents and teachers and students listening would really benefit from that mentality of, finding those opportunities where you can get involved in the career you're interested in, to really dive into that curriculum, to really see what it's like to be part of that community.
Absolutely.
Okay. So in terms of criminal prosecution, you transitioned to civil litigation. What motivated you to transition?
So let me just give you a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you want to ask about maybe my career as a prosecutor, and then what happened is when I took the bench, I inherited a civil calendar. Okay, so right now I'm hearing civil matters. And, maybe if you even say, after graduation, you started your career in civil litigation, and then you spent almost 2 decades as a prosecutor. And then we can go on to the transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just make sure I got this correct. So you focused on criminal prosecution and then transitioned to a civil calendar in terms of your judge position.
Yeah. So I started my career in civil litigation.
Okay.
And then I spent almost 2 decades as a prosecutor.
Okay.
Then an opportunity came up to become a judge. And so right now, I only have a civil docket.
Okay.
So the question generally is, how did your experience as a criminal prosecutor help you transition to the bench hearing civil cases?
Okay.
And then my calendar will split in just a couple months.
Having spent over 2 decades in criminal prosecution, how has that experience helped you transition to your current position as judge?
The experience that I had and the things that I learned as a prosecutor here in Clark County with the Clark County District Attorney's Office really gave me the skills that I needed to become a good judge, specifically a civil judge. So when I was a prosecutor, I spent almost 20 years in that office, really learning how to build a case and speaking with victims of crime, speaking with witnesses, trying to figure out how do I prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury. And these are all skills that are critical to being a judge. You have to be able to think critically, be able to look at the law and interpret that law. So the skills that I learned as a litigator, specifically as a prosecutor, they've really helped me transition to the bench. Already having been on the bench since June, I've heard hundreds of civil matters. I've presided over civil trials, and the rules of evidence don't change. So having that experience as a litigator has really enabled me to make quick decisions from the bench, make thoughtful decisions from the bench. And that's something that the civil bar I found really, really appreciates. Judges who can look at facts, who can analyze the law, and then make appropriate, thoughtful decisions in a timely manner.
Absolutely. So that experience from the criminal prosecution standpoint really has helped your current position. And then that will also help as you transition to more of a 50-50 when you are doing civil and criminal.
That's right. So right now I have an all civil docket. And what civil litigation means is I'm hearing lawsuits between private parties, things like contract disputes. If there's a car accident and one party is suing another, building violations, things like that. So lawsuits between private parties. So right now my calendar is all civil, and very soon my calendar will split. Like many judges in the 8th Judicial District Court, hear both a civil and a criminal calendar. Obviously, my background as a criminal prosecutor is going to enable me to, once I inherit those criminal cases, make those thoughtful, impartial, fair decisions because of my background, having such an extensive working history with criminal law, and then having practiced in the courts that I now preside over. So I'm going to be able to really make that transition seamlessly.
Absolutely. So can you share a little bit of insight from your most challenging cases and how those experiences have shaped your approach as a judge?
So when I was a former prosecutor, I started my first few years in the Clark County District Attorney's Office on the general litigation team. And that meant that I heard all kinds of cases and I handled all kinds of cases, from car burglaries to home burglaries to homicide, sexual assault, drug trafficking, gang cases. So I did a little bit of everything. And that really helped me sharpen the skills that I needed when I was promoted to what's called the high intensity drug trafficking area team, the HIDTA team. On that team, I dealt with local, state, federal law enforcement partners to disrupt and dismantle drug trafficking organizations. So that was my specialty for a very long time in the district attorney's office. I'm really working on combating the cartels and drug trafficking here in Clark County. A few years before I left the district attorney's office, and you're aware of this, I'm sure, as all of our watchers and listeners are aware of this too, fentanyl has really devastated Clark County. There has been an increase in overdose deaths, specifically with our youth. So in the few years before I left the office, I worked along with law enforcement agencies to help formulate or to help form what's called the overdose response team. And these are detectives and prosecutors who work specifically with overdose death cases involving fentanyl. So those were some of the most challenging cases because prosecuting cases where sometimes the victims were as young or younger than my own children. Those cases really hit home. And but I knew that, I was the right person to do this job, and I wanted to continue to protect our community, make sure that the drugs were not getting into the hands of our children. But also from a prosecution perspective, those cases were very difficult. A lot of the evidence was based in cell phone data. The murder weapon was gone because a pill had been ingested, and, that dissolves in the system. So those cases were difficult cases from an emotional standpoint because I am a mom, and the ages of our victims just involved such young children. My youngest victim was 13 years old and went to the same middle school as my daughters. So that's really where I decided to focus my energy on those types of cases. And then from that, I actually launched into doing a lot of community outreach for the district attorney's office. And that involved heavily working with our youth to talk to our youth about the dangers of drugs, specifically of opioids and fentanyl. So I worked with various youth organizations, including the Boys and Girls Club, Girl Scouts, and many more, to really get that one-on-one time with our youth to make sure that they stayed on the right path. So that was just work that I really enjoyed at the district attorney's office. And now as a judge, that's work that I continue to do. So I continue to work with youth organizations to make sure that our children understand the ramifications of using drugs, engaging in gangs, gun violence, that kind of thing. Because, at the end of the day, for me, it's public safety is number one. That's my number one concern, always has been. I've dedicated my career to advocating for justice for victims in our community. But it's also really focused on working with our youth and making sure the next generation have the tools that they need to make the right decisions.
Absolutely. Something that you were mentioning is how impactful it is as a mother to be on the side of seeing the victim, seeing really the horrific incidents that happen. How does your position as a mother impact your position as a judge?
So I have 17-year-old twin daughters. They're in their senior year, and they've gone through Clark County School District, and we've been very lucky with and blessed with the teachers that we've had. And I've always tried to stay engaged in my children's education. Being a mother has shaped everything for me, including my judicial philosophy. It has taught me patience. It's taught me, people want to be heard. And as a judge, that's my job, is to make sure the litigants are heard. And also being a mother has taught me, and anyone who's a mother knows this, especially of multiple children, you can listen to two sides of a story, and you become really good at figuring out not just what happened here, but what's the best course moving forward. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of what judges do. We listen to two different sides, and you have to figure out, based on the law in front of you and based on the facts, not just what happened, but how do we move forward? How do we make sure that justice is brought for the litigants, brought for our community? So yes, it's shaped my judicial philosophy, absolutely.
What reforms in the legal system are you most proud of being part of? And what future changes do you believe are necessary to advance justice?
So the 8th Judicial District Court is one of the busiest districts in the country as far as our caseload goes. So specifically myself, I have an all-civil docket, and I have one of the highest civil dockets in the 8th Judicial District Court. And I think that speaks, that's a testament to the Chief Judge's belief in my ability to handle these cases and to move these cases along, making sure that justice is served and the due process rights of everyone before me are protected. One of the tools that I've really leaned on to make sure the volume of cases doesn't cause a backlog and that justice is not delayed is using technology. So one of the things that we use in my courtroom are for just your ordinary standard appearances. I allow attorneys to use technology to remote in to the courtroom and make their appearances by Zoom. So that's something that we've incorporated throughout the 8th Judicial District Court, and that really helps move cases along. Another thing that I've done is we've put cases on calendar, sometimes 50, 60 cases a month, to make sure these cases aren't just stagnant in the system. And what that allows us to do is allows us to close a case. It allows the attorneys to do what they need to do to make sure the case is moving forward. And that way the court can use our limited resources on those active cases, on the cases that require hearings to happen quickly. So the use of technology has been huge. And that really came through during COVID when the courts, just like the rest of Clark County, we shut down for quite some time. Although we were having these remote appearances and making sure that defendants were getting their day in court, that litigants were moving forward with their lawsuits. But, that's a huge benefit that came from COVID or from the shutdowns, was leaning on this technology. And that's really allowed us to take the way that the cases are moving through the system to the next level.
Absolutely. Do you have anyone push back on the technology aspect?
I haven't seen it yet. I've only seen positives come from it.
Good.
So in my courtroom, when there are substantive arguments to be made, obviously if we're in trial or we're in an evidentiary hearing, you need to be live in the courtroom, in person. But for those quick matters that can get handled within just a few minutes, maybe less than 5 minutes, I think it benefits the attorneys, it benefits their clients, and it keeps costs down, because you can have an attorney sitting in his or her office and making these appearances rather than driving down to the courthouse, finding parking, that kind of thing. And from the judicial resources perspective, it certainly makes the cases go by a lot quicker for the court and for the court staff. And I've only seen benefit.
Well, that's amazing. And I think that's such a positive impact in being able to not only speed along the process for individuals, but also increase accessibility for the people who are in front of you. How do you view the role of educational outreach in fostering a more diverse and inclusive legal community?
So I think education, and specifically coming from the bench and engaging in our community, is so critical. A lot of times people aren't aware of what a judge does, right? So having these opportunities to speak with the community and educating them, not just about what a judge does, but about the legal profession. The legal profession is a very old profession. It's a very noble profession. So any opportunity that I have to connect with our community, especially our youth, and talk to them about careers in the law, and being able to contribute to society, I think that's so critical. So I really enjoy speaking with our youth about my journey into the law, because my journey isn't linear. I've had some stumbling blocks, but here I am. And then I think specifically to your question about diversity, I think it's so important that the next generation of attorneys see people like me. I'm the first Indian American judge in the state of Nevada, which to me is a personal accomplishment, but it also speaks volumes to where we are as a community. And so I think it's so important for me specifically to be out in the community, because now I get to be a role model. When I was in law school and when I started my career, I didn't see judges who looked like me. And now we have a bench with the majority are female. We have a lot of diversity in thought, a lot of diversity in background. And I think it's important now for the next generation to see, if we can do this, you can do this as well.
Absolutely. I think representation matters so much. And I think you are an amazing role model for children. And I love that not only are you acting as a role model, but you're actively going out into the community and showing them, because that also speaks volume of your character. And it will be such a tremendous thing for kids to be able to reflect back on as they grow up. Those who do decide to go into law will always remember the time that you came to talk to them, and you'll definitely be a role model.
I hope so.
So you have been part of children's lives throughout their journey. So you have seen them in the courtroom, you've been part of enforcing law. for them, to them, you also are involved in community outreach, and that involves education. So I just want to know what advice you would give parents who are at the start of that journey.
I think the best advice I can give is stay involved with your child. And that includes education, social, know who your children's friends are. We live in an age of social media and children have cell phones, mine do. But, as a parent, you need to make sure you're checking those text messages, checking their search history. Having a background as a prosecutor, yes, I've seen the worst in humanity. I've seen some horrible things done to children. So I think as a parent, you want to always protect your child. And I think so much of that is just staying involved. And it's also about leaning on other people when the circumstances are right. We've been very blessed to have some amazing teachers in my children's lives. And these are professionals upon whom I leaned when I needed the resources or help or just things that, perhaps I wasn't in the best position to educate my children about. So staying involved is huge. There are some great community programs. Law enforcement groups, specifically Metro, run some great programs that really help teens, preteens stay on the right path. So at the end of the day, it's really about staying involved in your child's life.
What you're saying really embodies to me that it takes a village, and really knowing who that village is and being able to build those connections is a critical part of helping your child succeed. And I think that's really powerful coming from a parent and someone who is in law to help our children stay out of the negative impacts that law can have, or not law, but the negative impacts the world can have on them. How has your background influenced your judicial philosophy, particularly regarding fairness and community impact?
So I came to the States as a young child, and I watched my mom work from the ground up, and she made so many accomplishments in her life, and I watched her with a very strong work ethic achieve a lot. And so that's what's really shaped me, is watching my mom overcome many of the challenges that she had as an immigrant, including not speaking the language. When I moved to the country, I didn't speak the language. So I understand what it's like to walk into a room and maybe not know exactly what's going on. And the legal system can be very intimidating. And in my courtroom, I always let the litigants know, listen, I've read everything, because I tell you what, just kind of going back to the work ethic, I believe in working the case up from the ground up. So I read all the pleadings. I do my due diligence. I look at the law. I make sure I know what facts are before me so then I can make fair and impartial decisions. But I understand that the legal process can be really intimidating for a lot of people, specifically for people who may not have grown up in this country and don't understand a lot of what is going on. So having that background myself, I think I am aware of these situational circumstances that might cause someone to be intimidated in what's already a very intimidating situation. So I always strive to be fair and impartial. And I've built a reputation, first as a prosecutor, now as a judge, in being fair and impartial and in treating everyone who comes into my courtroom with dignity, making sure that people are heard. If someone needs an interpreter, the courts make sure that they have interpreters available to them. If someone needs a break to talk to their attorney, to have their attorney explain perhaps what's going on, that will always be allowed in my courtroom. I want people to feel that they're getting, because they are, a fair chance with the justice system. Mm-hmm. So my background, I have a very strong work ethic. It requires a really strong work ethic to be a district court judge. We have a very heavy caseload, and we're in court physically maybe 3-4 times a week, but the job is 7 days a week. So, it requires a lot of energy, a lot of stamina, and a lot of dedication. And I've dedicated almost 20 years of my life to this community. I moved to Las Vegas shortly after law school, And I fell in love with this community. And this Clark County has given me and my children so much. And when it came time for me to choose a career, I decided to choose a career giving back to the community that's given me so much.
What advice would you give to young aspiring lawyers, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds?
So the advice that I give to aspiring lawyers is the advice I give to my own daughters, which is you have to work hard. This is not an easy profession. So you have to work hard and you have to love what you do. I came to this country as a young child. My mom came to this country with nothing. And so it was nothing but hard work that allowed her and now me to make the accomplishments that I've done. So it was hard work through elementary school, middle school, high school, hard work through college, and then getting into law school, and then really taking advantage of the resources that were available to me. We have so many affinity bar organizations now that really focus on diversifying the legal profession, and there have been so many strides that have been made. While I'm the first Indian American judge on the bench in the state of Nevada, I know I'm not going to be the last because those barriers have now been broken. And, for someone to look at me and believe if I can do it, they can do it, it's true. Because, 40 years ago when I came to this country, I would never have imagined that I would be where I am today. I don't think anybody in my family would have. I'm the first to go to college, to law school, and the thought of having been sworn in as a judge was something that I couldn't have even imagined. But it is through hard work. It's through leaning on resources that you can accomplish anything. But you have to love this profession. I certainly do, and I've benefited so much from it, both on a personal level and now being able to continue to give back to the community from the bench.
I love the advice that you just provide to young aspiring lawyers or anyone who's looking to get into law. I want to know, what about your career maybe do people not know about? What are some of the hidden responsibilities or fun things that you get to do?
So one of the greatest things that judges get to do here in Clark County, Nevada, is we get to officiate weddings and marriages. And I say that that's such a great thing because most of the time people are coming to court in probably not the best of circumstances, right? You've either been charged with a crime, maybe you've been the victim of a crime, there's a lawsuit going on, you're suing somebody's suing you. So usually these are tense situations. I'm sure most people who come to court would rather be somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So being able to celebrate moments of love and joy and moments that bring the community together, those are great moments, and one of the lesser known benefit really of being a judge.
What else would you like our listeners to know about you running to retain your judge seat?
So I was appointed to the bench in June by the governor after a 20-year career with the Clark County DA's office, and now I'm running to retain my seat. So what happens is when there is a retirement on the bench, it's up to the governor to make an appointment. So I put in an application, and the governor believed that I was qualified and the best candidate for this appointment. So I was appointed to the bench in June, and now I'm running, so I'll be on the ballot this November to retain my seat. And what I want the community to know is nobody's going to outwork me. I have an extremely solid work ethic. I make sure I've reviewed all the pleadings before me because every litigant deserves a fair shake in court. Judges should know what the cases are about. Judges should know the law. And what I want the community to know is that they're always going to get thoughtful, well-reasoned decisions from me. My decisions will always be fair and impartial. That is the duty and the oath that I took when I became a judge, was to follow the law. I am not one to legislate from the bench, so the judge's duty is to follow the law as written, interpret that law, looking at precedent, looking at case law, looking at statutes, and then make those right decisions. I have a breadth of experience, having been on the bench since June. I've handled hundreds of civil cases, heard trials, evidentiary hearings, motions. Sometimes I'm hearing 100 cases a week. So I have experience that's been tested on the bench, and I'm the only candidate in Department 14 who has that necessary judicial experience. So having listened to and heard, presided over hundreds of civil cases, I have a very vast knowledge in civil law. And then my career as a prosecutor, I bring almost 2 decades of criminal law experience to the bench. And Clark County deserves judges who are well-versed in both civil and in criminal law. So I bring a balanced approach to the bench. And I also like to stress my judicial temperament. I believe in treating everyone with dignity. I believe everyone should be able to tell their journey and their story to the judge in court. And so that's something I can promise the community is when and if you're ever in my courtroom, you are going to be treated with dignity. You are going to be treated with respect. And, finally, I'd like to stress my service to Clark County. I moved here shortly after law school, decided to spend my career representing the people of the state of Nevada. That's what I did for almost 20 years, advocating for justice. Prosecutors don't have a client. Their client, if there is one, is really justice. And so that's what I did for 20 years of my life, making sure that our children were safe, our communities were safe, our homes, our businesses were thriving. So that's what I did as a prosecutor. And when the opportunity came up to put in for that appointment, I had to make a decision. Do I leave a very successful career as a prosecutor for this appointment, knowing especially I had to run almost immediately?
Mm-hmm.
But I saw being a judge as a way to continue to give back to this community. So that's why I'm the best candidate to retain my seat, because of the commitment to the community that I've already shown with my service. And I really, really love what I'm doing. I love being able to make positive changes in the community. I enjoy speaking with our youth. And all the things that I've done in the last 20 years, I continue to do now from the bench. So to be able to retain my seat and to be able to continue to give back to this community, putting public safety first, I'm so proud to say that I have the endorsement of every law enforcement agency, not just in Clark County, but in the state of Nevada. So that speaks volumes to the fact that I am the public safety candidate, because I've always put public safety first. I'm endorsed by the sheriff. I'm endorsed by the district attorney, Steve Wolfson. I'm also really proud to say that I'm endorsed by firefighters and veterans, and the labor unions have also endorsed me. So I bring this, a lot of community support with me, and I think that is a testament to having served 20 years, serving this community, being fair, being thoughtful, being impartial in my decisions as a prosecutor, and now carrying those traits that I learned early on in my career to the bench. So having the support of law enforcement, veterans, firefighters, and labor unions, the people who built Clark County, that means a lot to me. So I would love the support this November at the ballot. Tina Talim, Department 14.
So we have a wide variety of listeners. We have parents, we have teachers, school board members, a variety of different people. I want to know your closing thoughts and what advice you would give them in terms of education.
So Clark County there's so much opportunity here, and there are so many resources like Sapience, where parents, when they need to lean on other people, they have those resources available to them. So as a parent, I'm a big believer in education, and a lot of that is parents have to be educated on the resources that are out there. And even as a judge, so I'll give you an example in the judicial sense, what we do when we believe individuals need resources rather than incarceration. So we have a lot of specialty courts in the 8th Judicial District Court. We have drug court, DUI court, veterans court, mental health court. So as a judge, it's really about connecting people with the resources that they need. So similarly, in the education system, it's really about, as parents, finding those resources that your children need and that they could benefit from, and then taking advantage of those resources and of those relationships to make sure the needs of your specific child are appropriately met.
Thank you so much, Judge Tina Talim. I appreciate your time, you sharing your journey from being a prosecutor to becoming a judge, and I wish you luck in your campaign. I appreciate your perspective on education, law, and I think that our listeners will get the most amazing insight from this discussion. If our listeners want to know more about you or follow your progress, how can they do that?
So I have a website. It's www.judgetinatalim.com. You can send me an email. My phone number is listed on there. I'm always happy to have conversations with the community to educate them about the role of a judge and what we're doing in the 8th Judicial District Court.
Amazing. Well, parents, hear that. Reach out if you have any questions. And again, I appreciate your time and thank you all for listening to the Sapience Podcast.
Thank you.